Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the EV Geek podcast. Today, we are thrilled to be joined by Shawn McLaughlin, the founder and CEO of Emporia Energy, a company that's helping homeowners take control of their energy use and save money while making a positive impact on the environment. Shawn's on a mission to make smart energy management accessible to everyone. And in this conversation, we will dive into his journey, the tech behind Emporia's products, and his vision for a more efficient, sustainable future. So without further ado, let's begin our chat with Shawn McLaughlin. All right, welcome to the podcast today, Shawn. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, Joel. Thanks for having me on.
Glad we love having companies on to talk about EV charging. We love it. So looking over your LinkedIn profile, stalked you a little on LinkedIn. You have been in the energy sector for over 20 years, which is astounding. Tell everyone about your journey and how you ended up founding Emporia.
Absolutely. So I actually began my career in the commodities marketing and trading space. So I like to say we were buying, selling, and trading the electrons and the molecules that powered our grid.
Okay.
And as far back as 2015, I was actually in the parking garage with my partner who I had founded my last company with called Concord Energy. And he looked at me and said, I can't wait to do this for another 20 years. And, about 300 employees. We were opposite in downtown Denver. I had about a 45-minute traffic filled commute. And on the way home, I thought, man, I don't. Then I want to do something new. So as far back as then, I put in motion my exit of that company. It did take a couple of years as I was the founder, CEO, and CFO and largest shareholder. But then in 2017, we made a successful exit. And during that 2-year period, I was really thinking about what I wanted to do next. And there was 3 things that I landed on. One, whatever I did, I wanted you to be able to feel, see, and touch the impact we were making on the world. Number 2, I wanted to work with new technology. I'm just fascinated with how it's going to transform kind of every aspects of our life. And number 3, I wanted to do something immensely scalable, right? And the Emporia business model, working with the energy transition, trying to build the grid of the future, kind of met all 3 of those criteria. So in 2018, we were off and running, building our home energy management system.
Awesome. So for those not familiar with Emporia Energy, kind of briefly describe the mission and kind of the focus of the company.
Well, yeah, I think that, when we start looking at the energy transition space again, as far back as 2015, we just couldn't believe how little it had changed in the last 100, 150 years, right? Centralized hydrocarbon power plants, long distribution lines. Yes, solar and wind are starting to play a bigger role in our grid, but for the most part, homeowners, they turn on their lights and they work. They get a bill from their utility and have very little say or choice in it, and they pay it. And we just thought it was about time we applied technology to get people to think about energy differently, to use energy differently, to produce it, to store it differently, right? Our mission is to revolutionize home energy. 85% of buildings in North America are 20,000 square feet or smaller, right? Most of them are residential homes. And so we thought, man, what a great untapped market for us to build a home energy management system that can reduce people's energy bills today by 10 to 20%, right? By leveraging their kind of IoT devices to manage energy in and around the utility rate schedule. But in the future, with home battery systems and our newest product that will be bringing to market next year, our bi-directional EV charger, we think we'll be able to save many many customers 30 to 50% off their utility bills. And we'll only use about a third of the capacity of that bi-directional charger. So if the homeowner will allow us to manage the other 2/3 of that unused capacity into the grid, we think we'll generate another $500 to $1,500 a year in revenue on top of that 30 to 50% savings after the utility bill. So that's our step forward in revolutionizing home energy, is to really transform the amount people are paying to electrify their home. At the same time, we think that the full kind of potential of virtual power plants can lower the amount of carbon it takes to run our grid by about
Mhm.
70%. So we'll have a big impact on the environment by doing this. And so, yeah, our mission is to revolutionize home energy. Our mission is to build the world's leading home energy management platform.
Awesome. That kind of just goes great into our next question. So, looking through the entire Emporia website, you offer a lot of services. A lot of people just think of you as like an EVSE manufacturer, and that's it. And that's how I thought of y'all at first until I started doing some research. I was like, man, there's a whole lot more to that. So, what, including home EV charging, like tell us a little about all the services Emporia has to can offer for customers.
Yeah, it's definitely think about it as an ecosystem play, right? And so we're building our home energy management platform. Today it's an early adopter product. We have about 300,000 customers. And we like to kid that they're all retired, electrical engineers, right? You kind of have to be,
Yep.
home DIY, smart home enthusiasts, really understand how your utility charges for your electricity. We think that by the early part of the next decade, it will go from early adopter right through early majority to the average consumer will think they need a home energy management system. And it's really based on that savings, right? When we go from a 10 to 20% savings to a 30 to 50% savings in that other $500 to $1,500 a year revenue on top of that, that's going to be kind of a game changer for a lot of folks in the way they approach their energy management and energy efficiency. And so we think it's going to be, a large growing market segment. There's going to be a handful of competitors that emerge, similar to maybe the smartphone or wireless carriers. You'll pick a platform and you'll make some capital investment in it. You make a lot in user experience investment, understanding how that platform works, and it's going to be really sticky. And we want to be one of those leading platforms. We think Tesla will be a leading platform, right? They are building out a great home energy management platform in their ecosystem as well. But we are building a competitive ecosystem for home energy management. And the big difference is we kind of look at Tesla as a little bit like Apple, where it's a more of a closed system, right?
Mhm.
They want to control end to end the user experience and the products that you adapt. We are trying to build a much more open system, right? So, for example, we're car agnostic, right? We want to be able to charge any car. We want to be able to run bi-directional EV charging with any car. We spent a lot of time and effort connecting our ecosystem to third-party IoT devices such as smart thermostats and smart appliances, right? So we can control your brand name washers and dryers, your smart thermostats. We can control your HVAC system, right? So we want to integrate and be an open platform that works with all of your system. But we want to bring that all together on one platform, right? So you have one platform that manages all of your IoT devices in regards to driving energy efficiency and energy savings, right? So your EV charger can be smart, but how smart is it when it doesn't know anything else that's going on in your house, right? How smart is it if it doesn't know what the wholesale price of electricity is or how much carbon's on the grid? How much smart is it if it doesn't even know if you're producing solar on your roof or not and when it should be charging your car, right? Our system kind of brings all that together on one platform. So it's smart. It's not just isolated to what it can do. It's taking into account what your whole home is doing when it's making decisions on when and how to charge your car or when and how to run your washer or dryer or your dishwasher.
Yeah, so I totally love that approach because even at home right now, I mean, if I want to change my thermostat, I have to open up the thermostat app. If I want to look at my security cameras, I go to open up the security camera app. If I want to charge
Right.
my Tesla, I have to look at my Tesla wall charger. But if I want to charge my wife's key, I got to look at that charger. And then I have to look at my Solar Edge app to see how much solar I'm producing, and
Right.
then look at my energy company app to see how many kilowatts I'm using. So it's just, and that's what we've been saying about the EV industry. It's too fragmented, and we need to get everything centralized. Like I have like 15 different EV charging apps on my phone when I go, road tripping because I don't know if I'm going to go to EV Go,
Right.
Tesla, and we got to get it more centralized. But you brought up a great point about bi-directional charging, vehicle to load, vehicle to home. What is the future of bidirectional charging? And because I know it's a big plan for what you guys have planned for Emporia.
Yeah, I mean, in the near future, meaning in the next 12 to 24 months, you'll start seeing what we call DC bidirectional EV chargings hit the market. meaning that the bidirectional itself has a AC to DC inverter in it. So it's going to be able to take power from your house or the grid that's in AC form, convert it into DC, which it'll then send to your car, and your car will store that power as DC power. And so it'll be a much bigger unit on the wall, right? It'll have air cooling, so a lot of fans on it. It'll kind of look like a large solar inverter or string inverter, right? And so that'll be DC power. And a lot of manufacturers will be starting to launch cars later this year and into next that are what we call bidirectional capable, right? That will be able to then run your house when the power goes out in your neighborhood, and or just manage your energy usage much more efficiently even when you're on grid power. So for example, 63, I think, percent roughly of homes are now on what we call time of use pricing, where you can pay 3 to 4. There's some rates out there, believe it or not, in California, where you pay 10 times more for power during peak hours than you do off peak. So when are peak hours? Well, it's when you're using the most energy. You come home from work, you turn the washer, dryer, dishwasher, doing your homework, or whatever it might be, and you're using a lot of power. That's when prices are most expensive. So how about you come on, plug it into your DC fast charger. We will run your house off of your car during those expensive peak hours. You go to bed around 10 o'clock at night. They shift off at peak hours to off peak, and prices get really cheap in the middle of the night. And that's when we will fill up your car. So it'll be full in the morning, right? And so that's how we're going to reduce this price. But the primary technology will be this AC to DC inverter on your wall that's running your bidirectional. Long term, they'll move that power conversion to the car, right? And the car will actually have that AC to DC inverter on it. A lot of those cars have it now. You can see how cars today will give you AC power, so you can run your smart devices or plug in a power tool in the back of the truck, if you will. But this whole next step of now, how do we connect that car to the grid, right? We're used to connecting a solar inverter to the grid. That's why it's easy to do a DC bidirectional charger, because it is the same form and function as a solar inverter. But we've never hooked up a car to the grid and considered that kind of a load center, if you will, right? Or a source, a power source. And so we're working through regulation. There's some new regulation coming out, or new standards coming out later this year that will be validated and testing with NREL around how the whole communication to the car and the grid works and is standardized, right? And so when that happens, we'll shift from DC to AC bidirectional charger. And that benefit will be that it'll be much less expensive and much easier to install for homeowners. And we expect that to take place towards the end of this decade. So the next year or two, we'll see a lot of DC charging starting to hit the market. It'll start scaling up to the end of the decade. And then we'll have a transformation again where we go from DC bidirectional charging to AC tridirectional charging. And that's where we really believe it's going to be commonplace in just about every home.
Awesome. So on our podcast, we review a lot of EVs, and what we're noticing is the cars out there now that do bidirectional charging, they all seem to do a little different. Are you guys having any challenges, since it currently seems like every OEM is implementing bidirectional charging a little different?
Yeah, it is. It is a challenging solution, or product, if you will. And so what we have today is what I would call just kind of like early product, right? And it was 3 or 4, in some cases 4 or 5 different components that they've kind of cobbled together that you have to hang on your wall, right? And so you have the EV charger, maybe you have the gateway, then maybe you have the ATS switch that will isolate you from the grid, and maybe you have to have a home battery system in some cases that are then UL 1931 certified to put power back into the grid. And they've cobbled together these systems, and they've tried to make them work together and communicate together. And many of these boxes come from different manufacturers. And so it has left us with kind of a few different pieces of fallout. One is they're immensely expensive to install, right? To try and get all these things on your wall and to coordinate and work together. 2, it's not a fantastic user experience. It doesn't often work seamlessly, and it's usually limited to just vehicle to home, and you can't actually take advantage of vehicle to grid. So this next generation of bidirectional chargers that will be coming out in the next 12 months, and what we are working on, is to take all those boxes and condense them into one unit, right? So with our charger, you'll be able to hang one box on your wall. It'll do vehicle to home, vehicle to grid. It actually has a relay switch in it that will isolate to a critical load panel for the vehicle to home. It'll be much simpler to install and much less expensive. With the advent of these tariffs, we'll start targeting about a $3,000 MSRP for our bidirectional EV charger, and we're working with installer base to really get the installation experience down, where that will be limited to a $2,000 to $3,000 installation. So it'll end up being half to a third of the cost of what it is today to install bidirectional charging.
Awesome. And you briefly mentioned earlier that, Tesla has their power walls, that they use. How is Emporia's approach to energy management and power walls kind of the same or a little bit different? You did touch a little bit about how theirs is more of a closed system and yours is an open system. So just care to elaborate a little more on that.
Yeah, I mean, just a little bit fundamentally, their power wall is kind of the center of their bidirectional EV charging. When you think about it, right? Their power wall has a string inverter in it that is UL 1741 certified to send power back and forth to the grid. So if you use the Tesla bidirectional EV charging and you want to go V2G, in other words, run your house off your car when the grid is up and running for that efficiency gain, you need to have a power wall, right? And the power is going to go through that power wall. We are really centered on the bidirectional charger and the car battery being the main asset that's going to do the V2G, right? So our bidirectional charger is 1741 SB compliant, and it can be get connected to the grid, and therefore your car doesn't have to go through a third-party battery system like the Powerwall. Right, with our bidirectional charger, we can do V2G. We then are going to bring together a gateway module, a gateway that can handle a home battery system if you want to add that on later, right? And so really thinking about, first and foremost, focusing on the bidirectional EV charger, and then really focusing on having a battery module that can be added to that bidirectional. But the bidirectional charger inverter becomes really the brains or the energy center of the energy management in the home.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I made the mistake because I was actually didn't know enough at the time that I just installed solar at my house without the Powerwall. So now my energy goes just back to the grid. I mean, it's a 1-for-1 I get here in Arkansas, but so are people going to get more savings doing it, having the solar wall and bidirectional charge as compared to just sending it back to the grid?
Well, that will depend on where you live in the country and when you installed your solar system.
Mm-hmm.
So in most places, going back 5 years and further, you have contracts where if you installed solar, the utility acted as a free battery system, right? You could put all your excess back into the grid. When you produced it, you could take it from the utility to run your house whenever you want. And in essence, the utility doesn't charge you anything for that. So they act as a free battery. Now, that's a hidden subsidy.
Mm-hmm.
It is actually much bigger than the federal tax credit, right? But the utility to act as a free battery is very expensive, and they're passing that cost on to their entire customer base, right? Through higher fees and rates to pay for that service to solar installers. And it's really not sustainable if we want solar to have a much higher penetration into the market. And so that's going away, right? Places like California, we've gotten rid of one net metering. A lot of utilities have gone to time of use. And so in the middle of the day, when there's a lot of solar, prices are cheap. And so you only get a little bit for your solar you put in the grid. At night, during those peak hours when you need it, prices are much more expensive. So you pay a lot higher rate when you pull it back, right? And so we're having to correct that really unfair subsidy, unsustainable subsidy. And so today, if you install solar, in most places, you don't get that free battery in 1-to-1. And that's the beauty, right? Electric vehicle charging, bidirectional EV charging in EVs could completely replace that, right? And the cost of the battery is underwritten in the purchase of the car. And so now you can produce and store and use your own energy in a really cost-effective way and not have to lean on your neighbors or your grid operator to kind of pay for that service.
Totally agree. In fact, about a year ago, Arkansas got rid of their net metering. So those of us who have it are grandfathered in, but it is no longer anymore. So yeah, that's where I see, home energy management, Powerwall has become more and more, important, because now, if you have solar and you don't use the energy, it's just kind of gone if you don't have that management. So.
And Joel, like folks like you and I kind of see it and feel it at home. But if I could talk for a minute about what's going on more of a national and worldwide level over the next 5 years, or really through 2050, but there's a bigger problem in the next 5 years. They're estimating, the Department of Energy is estimating that we need to add here in the United States over 200 gigawatts of new power to our grid over the next 5 years, between now and into 2030, right? And it's coming from AI data centers, right? You can't open up a newspaper or a news feed and not see what AI is doing these days, right? But AI data centers have a huge amount of demand, but it's also onshoring manufacturing. This administration is really pushing that. That takes energy. It is the electrification of kind of everything. It's both our electric vehicles, but also heat pumps, right? New York City just passed a law you can't build a new building without purely electric heat, right, and electric appliances. And so they've gotten rid of. You got a hydrocarbon in new buildings, and so we're electrifying everything. It's going to be over 200 gigawatts of new energy. And when you look in such a short period of time, we haven't added that kind of power really ever, right? I mean, we have a much bigger grid that was built over 150 years. And so how are we going to build that power? Realistically, renewable energy and primarily solar is going to have to play a huge role in that. Like probably 60%, 65% of that 200 gigawatts is going to need to be solar. And so now we're adding a ton of solar to the grid, and the grid needs to change, right? It's going to go from a centralized hydrocarbon along distribution lines to this decentralized production, and it's going to be smart, right? We're going to be controlling load, controlling production, controlling storage at the edge in your neighborhood to balance the grid, but also to balance your neighbors, right, in your community, right? And so think about it decentralized, think about it being resilient and clean and smart, right? And so our goal, we talked about our mission, our vision, our goal is to build the nation's largest virtual power plant, right? And we have a target in the short term here by the end of this decade to have 2 gigawatts of battery capacity under management. With that, we believe that we'll be able to make energy disappear in any neighborhood in the country with push of the button, or we can make energy appear in any neighborhood in the country with the push of a button, right? In essence, balancing the grid of the future at the edge to really match the supply and demand at any given moment, right? And so that's where we're heading to, and that's going to be the future.
Yeah, I mean, I know here in Arkansas, our largest energy company, there's a law in the books, I think by 2026, 27, 28, it has to close all of its coal plants out here and open up solar arrays out here. So I know they've already done one in a certain area and opened up a huge solar farm. And now they're working on another one here, I think just near Pine Bluff, where they're trying to figure out how to get the tough part is that they have to build it on one side of the river and then get it over to the other side of the river. So that's the key hookup they're trying to get now, is how to get that transmission to the other side of the river. But yeah, I totally agree. I mean, this is where we're heading. I mean, just driving in Arkansas, which people don't think is a lot of green energy, there are solar farms popping up everywhere in the state, huge ones, hundreds and hundreds, thousands of acre storage farms with solar popping up in the state.
Yeah, when you dig into the 200 gigawatts I was talking about, that's exactly right. About half of it's that new demand I mentioned, and about half of it's retiring older plants, right? A lot of those are coal.
Gotcha.
Cool point.
So talk about a specific product. So Sebastian, our co-host, who couldn't join us today, he installed the Emporia Pro EVSE and he loves it. But the one thing he loves about and that he's addicted to is he just tracks that load management throughout the app. Like he can see how much kilowatts his house is using. He's like, oh, my washer's using. I mean, he was like, look at this. He's sending pictures. Look how much energy my washer machine's using. Look how much energy is this using. Because he actually went in there and tied each of his, what each of his circuits were and what's on that circuit and how much load it's using. It's fascinating. Why did y'all think that's such an important feature to include? Because it's a real geeky feature. I mean, most people who are charging EVs, that's something they don't care about. But why did you think that was such a cool feature to include?
Yeah, great question.
Yeah.
And now you see why, we have 300,000, kind of retired electrical engineers as our customers. The early
Yes.
adopter enthusiasts absolutely love that feature. They love seeing real time, second by second. I mean, you can turn on your microwave and exactly see energy spike, what it's costing you, how much energy it's using. And you can go around your entire house and find what we call phantom loads or vampire loads, right? Loads that you didn't even know they were on in a storage room that were drawing a lot of energy. And there's testimonial on our website regarding these energy enthusiasts and how they reduce their energy bills by really understanding exactly how much energy each one of their appliances are working, if their appliances are working correctly, if they're working efficiently, or if they're really when and how often they're on. And that has been a great feature, but we honestly didn't build it with the early adopter in mind.
Mhm.
Look, we believe, and again, that this grid of the future, right? And we think that it's going to be what we call AI optimized. So we will have very smart machines that are monitoring every node in our entire grid and are able to access, again, these batteries at the edge and adjust consumption, adjust battery storage and load, to drive efficiency and savings. Well, what does that super intelligence need? Right, it needs the world's most robust energy database,
Mhm.
and that's what we're building. Right, we are capturing energy usage data from every neighborhood in the country, all the way down to individual appliances and second level. Right, we know
Mhm.
exactly when things are turning on, when things are turning off, how much energy is consuming. We overlap that with weather patterns. We can overlap that with wholesale prices. And now we can overlap that with super intelligence to really understand how they can maximize the efficiency of the grid. So it's really about that. It's, about building that database of that real-time disaggregated data so we can make much more intelligent decisions in the future on how to manage our grid, right? And then the bidirectional charger becomes that scaffolding, right? That in node that gives us control to turn on and off energy. It's one thing to analyze the data, but now let's do something with it. Well, having 2 million EV batteries connected to that super intelligence that's looking at that data to make some modest adjustments neighborhood and neighborhood on whether you should be charging or discharging back into the grid will drive huge efficiency and balance and savings and carbon reduction. So yeah, it's all about the data, right? At the
Yep.
end of the day.
Yes, that's one thing we love looking at is just we're data nerds. We like seeing the charging. I'm upstairs in a room up here that has a split level. I have no idea how much energy that thing uses. It's on all the time now because it's 100 degrees here in Arkansas, but I have no idea like how much actual energy that unit over there is using. That's something I'd want to know. I mean, can I get something more efficient or what? So it's just good data to have.
Yeah, but if I can, Joe, there's one other real benefit of our Pro EV charger that comes with the home energy management system standard in the box with it, that it unlocks is something that we call Power Smart.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is another kind of big unknown thing is that 40% of homes in the United States don't have enough power or enough room in their electrical panel to add a level 2 EV charger, right? So homes built kind of pre 1980 are typically 100 amp panels. Home built post 1980 200 amp. But look, if you put a hot tub or a couple electric furnaces in your home, you're going to eat up that 200 amps. A level 2 charger needs a 60 amp breaker, right? It
Mm-hmm.
needs over 25% of the capacity of a 200 amp panel, over half of a 100 amp panel. So you can just imagine 40% of homes don't have that available capacity. The houses were never built and spec'd to install a level 2 charger. So with our energy management system combined to our EV charger, we built a product that we call Power Smart, where our energy monitor is monitoring how much capacity is available in your panel. We actually sample data 3,000 times a second. We send second level data then to the EV charger, telling it at what rate it can charge, right? And so if you have 20 amps available, we set the charger at 20 amps. If you have 48 amps available, we set it at the full 48 amps. And if you have 0, we turn off your charger. So people can install this, and it is not based on National Electric Code. It is not added to the load calc in your electrical panel. So you don't have to upgrade your electrical panel to install a level 2 charger if you have the real-time in-panel energy monitor only allocating available capacity. So if your air conditioner and your iron and your oven turn on at the same time, right, we pause the EV charger. And then once those turn on, we turn it back on. You as the homeowner don't even know what's going on, but we're making sure we don't overrun that panel. And that's a huge feature. That can save the homeowners from anywhere from $3,000 literally to $10,000 to upgrade the electrical service in their home when they need to install a level 2 charger or heat pump that our energy management system alleviates.
And that's the exact reason why Sebastian chose that charger, because he lives in a house, I believe, built probably in the, late 60s, early 70s. He lives way out. He's got like an acre or two way out. And he was like, is that the little white box that comes with it? It's in the packages? Yeah, because he was showing me pictures. I'm like, what is that white box? He's like, oh, that's my little device that you mentioned that controls how much charge my car gets depending on what's going on in my house. So if it's at nighttime and we got the dishwasher running, we're cooking and all that, it knows to back it off. But if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, boom, it's going full throttle, which is with as much as it can. And I don't have to spend, and he didn't have to spend $3 to $5 grand to update that whole, electrical panel. So,
and look, those electrical codes are important. They're absolutely necessary for safety. But the reality of it is we probably have to adjust that charger once or twice a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. 99% of the time, you don't have your air conditioner, your dishwasher, your curling iron, and your dryer going at the same time.
Yep.
But you need it for safety. But typically, you can charge it full power, and this allows you to do that by being compliant with the National Electric Code.
So yeah, and that actually is a great segue into our next segment, because when I talk to people about, I charge my EV at home, we have 2 EVs we charge at home. A lot of people are like, hey, are you worried about the safety? You're worried about your garage catching fire? I'm like, well, no, but we know that is a big concern and a lot of questions we get from people making the switch to EVs. So you kind of mentioned a little, what steps do y'all take in Emporia to make sure that your products are safe and reliable? Because we're seeing a lot of products out there, and we've reviewed a lot of products, especially with EV charging, that are not safe and are not reliable for home EV charging.
Yeah, I mean, think number one is make sure anything that you're installing is UL certified, right? And so we go through rigid testing and validation with third-party UL test house, where they put our charger in all kinds of different conditions. They look at all the components, they look at the spacing and ingress, and they make sure that it is built safely, right? And that the mechanical design can handle any kind of failure inside, right? Because it is NEMA compliant and will hold any kind of temperature inside. So making sure everything is UL compliant is really important. But secondly, and is least as big, if not bigger, is the installation, right? Most problems that we see today is installation. For example, you can go down to Home Depot and you can buy what looks like a NEMA outlet that you can plug our charger into, but typically those NEMA outlets are underrated, right? Maybe they're only made for 30 amps instead of 48 amps, or they weren't made for a consistent 5 or 6 hour 48 amp load. They were made for a dryer that's turning on and off, right? And so either they would be installed with the wrong equipment or it won't be installed correctly, and that can create quite a bit of a fire hazard. So I would say as important as buying UL certified product is making sure that you have a professional, or at least somebody that really understands electrical and electrical equipment doing the install.
Yeah, I totally agree. Even when I had our 1450 outlet installed here a few months ago, because we were just using a 110 for my wife's car, I actually went out and bought the 1450 outlet, and I told my electrician, I want you. I was like, no, I'm going to go out and buy the outlet. I want to make sure I get a good one. I don't want no $10 cheap one from Home Depot. Right. I'm going to go out and buy one. That's the one I want you to use. He's like, are you sure? I was like, yes, I will purchase the outlet. You just do the installation for me. So, and that's what we did. Yep.
Right. And again, nothing against Home Depot or those cheap outlets. They were just never meant for the purpose of EV charging.
No, they're not.
Right? EV charging is a different load. It is 240 load, but when you're plugging a car for constant power for 10 hours, these things were made for a dryer.
Yep.
That dryers don't run like that, right?
Yeah,
so
if you're plugging in a Silverado EV that has 5% on, and it's going to sit there and charge for a while to get to 80%. You need to make sure you have something good in there, because I think it's going to be charging for a long time.
That's exactly right.
So final question, Shawn, before I let you go today. So if you had a crystal ball, what does the future of home EV charging and home management look like, and what role will Emporia play?
Yeah, again, I think by the early part of next decade, most homeowners will believe they need a home energy management system. I think there'll be a small handful of platforms that you're going to choose from. So again, today you might pick Apple, you might pick Android. I think in the future you might pick Tesla, you might pick Emporia, right? And you're going to invest a little bit in the hardware, a lot in the setup and understanding the kind of UI and UX. And your home energy management platform will leverage your electric vehicle and any other smart home devices you have to drive a tremendous amount of energy efficiency and savings, right? And for the individual homeowner, again, we think this will reduce your bills by 30 to 50%. We think you'll have an opportunity to generate another $500 to $1,500 a year of revenue. Again, that will depend where you are in the country, right? Energy prices are different in different locations. There's different mix on the grid. I'm not trying to be wishy-washy. I give those just because it's more geographic than anything else. But anyway, you'll be able to save a ton of money there. But most importantly, what that is going to do is that is going to empower the grid of the future, right? This, again, sustainable, this resilient, this disaggregated, smart grid is what your home will participate in. So think about right now, it's kind of a one-way street where power goes to the end of the house, and that's the end node, and it dies. I think now that every single house is going to be networked together, and they're going to be thinking together and balancing the grid together to drive energy efficiency and savings. Now, as a homeowner, you won't give up control. You'll decide how you want to participate. And the more aggressive you get in letting your home energy management system participate, the more benefit and revenue you'll generate, right? And so each of us will be able to customize it however you want. But it'll be, again, a decentralized smart grid that is literally managed at the home level versus at the central power plant level.
Yeah, so I'll have the choice whether to keep all that stored energy for myself or share it at the grid, however I want to choose to do it. So
yeah, and maybe, look, you want your car battery to last 500,000 miles because you're going to have that car for 25 years, and so you don't want to use it to run your home. But if you're like most of us, that car battery is going to way outlive the useful life of the car, and we're going to trade it in within 10 years. Why not get full value of it while it's sitting in my garage?
That's right. Shawn, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. Any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
No, Joel, I just appreciate the show. I appreciate what you guys are doing to spread the good word out there. And thanks for giving us the opportunity to join you and talk about Emporia.
Awesome. So for more energy about Emporia and their products, you can visit emporiaenergy.com. Me and Sebastian both highly recommend their EV home chargers. One of the best in the business, reliable. They're awesome. As always, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and tap that notification icon so you'll be alerted when new content drops. Thanks again to Shawn and the team at Emporia, and we'll see you again on our next podcast. So long, everyone.